Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson. Happy Friday. That's when I'm recording this. You'll have it all weekend. And this is going to be very relevant up until 3 o'clock kickoff off on Sunday. So I'm going to get you one here. And this one's not super Steeler related, but it is in terms of what does it take to keep advancing in the NFL playoffs. And I have 3 trends here that I want to discuss and how it relates to the Steelers, but to these remaining teams that are really, really strong. Now, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel for you. I'm not going to come up with, this scheme always wins, or here's an anomaly weird stat that no one would have ever thought of. But some tried and true stuff is really hanging on around the league right now. And let me start with turnover situation. We all know we all know the importance of turnover ratio. Maybe we don't. Maybe it's even more important than ever. You know what I mean? And check this stuff out. This is crazy for some of these teams. So the teams that won the turnover margin, and the Steelers are in this conversation, are 7-0 in the 2024 playoffs. So if you've won the turnover margin in the playoffs this year, you advanced. How about that? The Chiefs, they're a pretty successful organization. They have won 37 straight games, including the playoffs, in which they won the turnover margin. A lot of those have to be a 1-point difference. 37 straight for the Chiefs. If they win it by 1, they win 37 in a row. That is crazy. The Eagles aren't much different. Since 2022, including the playoffs, when they win the turnover margin, they're 26-1. These good teams, if you give them a sliver, they take a mile. You know what I mean? It is insane. Further reiterating this, since the 2022 divisional round, teams that have won the turnover margin are 20-1 in the playoffs. And the only loss during that span is when the Bills lost by 1 in the 2023 divisional round in a crazy game, in a super close game. And they were +1 in turnover differential in that game. 20-1. Sometimes it comes down to these simple things. And I don't think it can be stressed enough. And I got one more here. I just lost it there for a second. The Bills, they lead the NFL with 14 games this season, 2024 season, including the playoffs, in which they won the turnover margin. And they're 12-2 in those games. So they have 14 games this year that they've won the turnover margin. And to go back to the Chiefs, the longest winning streaks in NFL history when the team wins the turnover margin by starting quarterbacks since 1950. Pat Mahomes has a streak of 37 games. That ties Joe Montana and Aaron Rodgers. It's only behind Steve Young, 42 straight games. When they win the turnover margin, Steve Young wins if he starts the game. 49 of them by Jim Kelly, even better. And 49 of them by Kurt Warner, even better. But as you could imagine, Tom Brady's the king here. He had a 58 straight game winning streak when his team won the turnover battle. Sometimes it's that simple. And boy, does that apply to the playoffs. Boy, does it apply to the modern era. It's massive, and it's very Steeler related. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA to college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. The game starts here. Here's one. I'm going to save that one for the end. Okay, we've established turnover margin is really important, and you give awesome quarterbacks, well, they have something to do with it, the turnover advantage. They're really, really, really hard to beat. Yeah, Brady, Rodgers, Kelly, Warner, Mahomes. Now, how about this? It also is important to play these games at home. To advance in the playoffs nowadays, you got to play home games, and you have to win turnover battles. And again, this isn't new, but still, these numbers are very, very strong. So how about this? The Chiefs are 9-0 in home this year, including the playoffs, and have an 11-game streak of home wins right now. They've won 11 in a row at home and are undefeated this year, including last week in the playoffs. They host this game. The Eagles, we saw this one firsthand too. 10-1 at home this year, including the playoffs, and have won 10 straight in their building. They did lose week 2 versus the Falcons, but they have a 10-game winning streak. The Steelers were one of them, but are not alone, obviously. How about in the playoffs this year? How have the home teams done? Well, we saw the Steelers go into Baltimore and lose. Home teams are 8-2 in the playoffs this year. The only teams that won on the road, the Commanders twice. Hosting home games is really important. Again, I'm not reinventing the wheel. But this game isn't as complex as you think either. Win the turnover battle. Play your games at home. Now, how do we get the Steelers to the point where they're hosting home games? Well, it wasn't that crazy to think 6 or 7 weeks ago when they were in the driver's seat to win the division that maybe one more win, especially if it would have been against the Ravens, would have ensured a home game. To start, you were pretty close. Doesn't make it okay. Doesn't mean that they would have won. But if you're hosting home games, and more importantly, if you're winning the turnover battle, you advance at a very high percentage. All right, here's the last thing I found. Maybe this is a fluke, but there's no way you can convince me that this is fluky. But I'm kind of blown away by this. We often talk about third down conversions. How often does Tomlin talk about money downs? Okay, that's great. And this doesn't mean Mike Tomlin's too conservative. He should go for it all the time. Or all these coaches like Dan Campbell or Washington going for it on fourth down is the most important thing. I'm not there yet. I do think the Steelers and Tomlin could certainly be more aggressive in this neighborhood. But I'm not, as analytical as I am, I'm not married to the numbers that, well, I should look at this sheet and it tells me to go for it on 4th and 1 here but what if my right guard can't block Aaron Donald? Or I don't have a play that I trust? Or it's windy as can be and all I can do is throw the ball. I don't think you just look at a spreadsheet to see if you should go for it on 4th down. Again, I think the Steelers should be more aggressive on 4th down. But this blew me away. So the 4 NFL teams with a 4th down conversion rate of 70% or better. Okay, Doesn't matter how often you go for it. But 4 teams convert at 70% or better. Guess what 4 they are? They're all alive. You can't tell me that's a fluke. You can't. The Eagles convert on 4th down 70.4%. Now, tush pushing definitely helps. Definitely. And I think every team needs to reevaluate that as long as that rule stands. And I don't think the rule committee is ever going to change it, but I thought it was going to lead to more injuries, but whatever. And a lot of teams are having a tight end take that snap and be the tush pusher. But I think every team needs to evaluate this. On 4th and short, we have to have some sort of similar play. But anyways, that's part of this. Part of it's being good at it and practicing it. Part of it's just being really good on the O-line. These are good offensive lines. But anyway, the Eagles convert at a 70.4% clip. The Chiefs are slightly better at 70.6%. But they also happen to be remarkably good on 3rd downs. 3rd and 5 turns into a 6-yard gain for the Chiefs all the time this year. The Bills convert on 4th down 72.7% of the time. And they've become a true tush push team. And why wouldn't you with Josh Allen? And their O-line's really good as well. But Washington shocks me that they're in this conversation, right? I mean, those other 3 teams, no one's surprised that they're still alive. But as I mentioned, the Bills are the second best on 4th down conversion percentage at just under 73%. Where do you think Washington's at this year? They're number 1. 87%. And they go for it all the time. They are super aggressive. And frankly, I think they might be too aggressive. But they're converting like 9 out of 10 times. And some of them have to be, especially for them, because they have not, played with these massive leads. Now, that's definitely part of it. There is a chicken or egg thing here. That if you're a terrible team, if you're the Titans who pick first in the draft, I'm sure there's a lot of 4th downs late in games that you have to go for that are 4th and 12 that you had never gone for anyway. No doubt. But the fact that these are the 4 most efficient teams on 4th downs cannot convince me is an accident. And it's something I think every team needs to evaluate, that that's where the league is going. Doesn't mean you have to go for it on every 4th, but be really good at it when you do. So, again, these apply to the Steelers. All these teams that are sitting at home need to evaluate trends. Why are these 4 teams playing football and we're not? Well, those are some major reasons, and I think I back them up pretty strongly. All right, everyone, take care.